Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nerd Ledger. I'm Cage, and today I'm here to talk about House of the Dragon, Season 8. Sorry, Season 3, Episode 8, the season finale of House of the Dragon. Okay? Um, Listen though, before all that, Chair should be back this week, and we'll talk about Lanterns. Season 1, Episode 1 just premiered. We're probably going to talk about that this week. I'm all ready to talk about X-Men 97 at some point, so we'll see when that happens. But, excuse me, House of the Dragon. So, this episode, we start with Rhaenyra and everybody else finding out that Aegon is still alive. She's freaking out. She's like going all crazy and crying and shit. She goes to Daemon, and Daemon's like, yo, strength is what we need right now. We don't need none of this wow shit you're going, okay? We need strength. The people out there, they need to know you're strong, and that's all that matters, okay? And she had the switch up of the century. She went from to I will fucking bend and kill and destroy everyone and everything. Yeah, the show is a little crazy. Meanwhile, Bela, oof, Bela, she is so done with Rhaenyra. She's like, hey, yo, Rhaenyra, you've been treating us all fucking weird since your son died and whatnot. Like, what the fuck, yo? We're out there busting our asses. We're out there doing all this shit for you, not sleeping, working till the break of fucking day, motherfucker, and you don't give no fucks. And Rhaenyra's like, you motherfucker, what the fuck is you talking about? I am now strong, and I will no longer let you talk to me badly. And insolence runs in your blood, even though we share the same blood. And so whoa, okay. I, I struggle when to talk about the book differences versus the show without like spoiling things. So like again, this is something I mention in almost every one of these recaps I do because they made changes a lot in this show early on. And a lot of those changes caused them to change other things moving forward, right? Even to the point, right, where we have Tumbleton, right? We have the battle in Tumbleton, which was a big part of this episode. And like based on the way the battle goes here, I almost wonder if they're going to even do the second battle of Tumbleton, which isn't really a spoiler. Most people know kind of like the plot points, like if I mention like the God's Eye or Tumbleton or the Dragon Pit or whatever, right? Um, like because there were also people that thought, well, they're not going to do the Maelor storyline with Helena's kid, but then she was pregnant at the beginning of the season. People were like, oh, maybe they're doing Maelor. No, there was never a chance that we're going to do that, especially because then you'd have to tie it in somehow to, the changes they made because Maelor was snuck out of the castle before Rhaenyra showed up in the book story, and crazy shit happened from there. And I don't know how much interest they have in showing some of that crazy shit. Like they've shown some crazy shit. I mean, in this episode, a spoiler warning if you haven't watched it, but in this episode, the way Ormond died is some crazy shit, right? So they're not shying away from showing some graphic things, but maybe they didn't want to show a baby being ripped apart. So they just didn't do that. I mean, birthing scenes all of season 1, sure, but a baby being ripped limb from limb, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that, I guess. But we when I talk about the changes they made and how it forces them to make changes later on, this is something I didn't fully read before, but I knew there was some beef between Ryan Condal, the writer, and George R. R. Martin, the creator of House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. And he had written a piece, and I was just reading up on this, but he had written a piece called "The Toxic Butterfly," more or less about the changes they made to his piece of work, and when you make those changes, and you have to, it's a butterfly, or like, it's this cascading effect, right? One change leads to another, and eventually the thing that you once had is something completely different. And in this episode, it felt like people were reading some shade into this episode, like the writer throwing shade at George R. R. Martin because of the toxic butterfly, because Helena butterflies, and then Alicent at the end sees the butterflies, and it's kind of like people thought that was like a slap in the face to George R. R. Martin. Some people were thinking that oh, Alicent, because of the butterflies, knows that Helena's dead. I don't think that's true at all. But the death of Helena in the book is also used, by enemies of Rhaenyra as like a propaganda against her, because the prevailing opinion is that she jumped. She had enough and she just jumped, and nobody really knew why. But they speculated, like the captivity and stuff. And there was speculation. One of the pieces of speculation that the book mentions is people thought that she was pregnant and she was afraid of what would happen, so she jumped out. But the book also says that that idea is completely unfounded. Like, it's that nothing more than a rumor. And but at the same time, the enemies of Rhaenyra in the book use it. They say, well, Rhaenyra had her killed. She had like her Kingsguard, throw her out the window, and things like that. So, but I don't know. Maybe they'll do that in the show too. Maybe they'll, because she's still in power and all these other things, right? We also have Ormond making Darren a knight, Darren the Daring. He's finally got his title that he had in the book. But he's a lot more useless in this show than he was in the book. He really hasn't done much of anything. But in this episode, he has shown that he's willing to do things, right? He's willing to put himself out there and do what needs to be done. So much so that, he tries to send Gwaine as an emissary with a peace offering for a truce with what's his face, the sea snake, Corlys Valerian. We also they don't really show it, but they kind of confirm through other scenes that Rhaenyra has legitimized Alan, and now he goes by Alan of Driftmark, and he's doing her bidding and killing the Septon and all this crazy shit. And Adam kind of calls him out for it. And so, again, Adam is pretty important for things maybe in the future, but they've changed so much that who knows what actually is going to come from that storyline, if anything. Rhaenyra also sends Mysaria away, and Mysaria continues just to be fucking weird and sneaks back in and, whispers something to Helena, which people think maybe made her John, which, whatever. I'm just tired of that character. Alice Rivers heals Aemond. We also learn Alice's story. She was the Lady of Harrenhal. She was the wife of Sir Harren the Black, and she talks about this child she had, and that now she's just cursed to, like, she's really, really old, and she's just cursed to do this, and you don't know the motivation, because Targaryens are responsible for all the ill fate of Harrenhal, really. So why is she always trying to pursue Targaryens and have their children? Is there some kind of prophecy thing she's trying to do, or I don't know. I know in the book she does. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but there's a relationship with her and Aemond as well in the book. Yeah, Rhaenyra is just awful to Helena still, and she kills herself. Ormond also, before the Battle of Tumbleton, decides to line the walls of Tumbleton with children because he's a scumbag. And this is all just to make Rhaenyra look bad, because he fully believes that her people will kill those children, whether by accident or on purpose. It's a tool to use against her. Gwaine does sue for peace. He presents this idea of splitting the realm, letting Darren, rule over one, the Southlands and all this stuff, and then Rhaenyra rules over other lands and whatever. And this is actually Alicent's idea in the book. When Rhaenyra first takes the castle, Alicent's like, "Yo, let's avoid all this shit," Uh, but listen, in the book, they're not friends. They were never friends. They don't like each other. They never liked each other. And so again, small changes change things completely. It doesn't. It. I think the TV show goal was like, let's have it so they grow up together and they have this history, and then they come together, and then when all these events start to take place, it'll make it more dramatic and make you feel more because you've established this relationship with these characters. But this relationship was so estranged, and the reasoning behind, like, like the reasoning behind Alicent going from one side to the other is so flimsy. It doesn't really work too much in the show for me. But anyway, Aegon, he's back, bitches. And him and Aemond are, they have their little things going on. Like I said, Alan killed the Septon, but the crux of the big hurrah of this episode is the Battle of Tumbleton. It's crazy. Roddy the Ruin is fucking insane. He's cool as fuck. Ulf is passed out drunk the whole fucking time. Eventually gets on his dragon, starts blowing people to bits, and he doesn't really care who he kills. He's killing people in Tumbleton. He's killing people in the Black's army, and he even says "fuck you" to Ormond. He blows him to shreds as well. We have a big battle between Daemon and John Roxton, which Daemon doesn't win, but he doesn't lose either, right? John Roxton has a role to come if they stick with his story from the book. We also have this thing with Darren and Gwaine, where Darren's trying to mount Tessarion and go help his people, but then he doesn't because of Ulf shows up on his dragon. But while they're in the town walking around, like watching what's going on, then Ulf decides to start burning the town, and we don't know what happens from there. But yeah, it is what it is. This episode had some pretty good moments, some high highs. Roddy the Ruin, massive MVP of this episode. But it leaves a lot. It leaves a lot left, right? We don't know how they're gonna wrap this up. We have to wait 2 years for the last 8 episodes. There's a lot of story still to tell. So how much of that they're actually gonna tell? Like, that's why I think maybe they won't do the second Battle of Tumbleton. Maybe they'll change some things with Hugh because he finds his wife Kat dead. No, she's not burned by dragonfire. She's not crushed by debris. She's just dead in the house. Maybe she had a heart attack or something. I don't fucking know. But is Hugh gonna blame Ulf? Is he gonna think Ulf is working on the orders of Rhaenyra? We don't know, right? Are they gonna change this story more? Which again, it's okay to make changes to things when you're doing adaptations. There are impacts to those changes. One change begets another, and on it goes. But it also, for people who have read the books, it presents them with something new, something unexpected. There's surprises still, and sometimes that's a very good thing, right? Like we as book readers, as comic book readers, as whatever, like we use those things as gospel a lot of times, and we view them as the true telling of whatever it is, right? And the reality is that's our interpretation a lot of times. And on top of that, right, like it morphs into this idea that the source material is perfect the way it is, right? Which is almost never true. But aside from like things like the Lord of the Rings, where you go, this is, people who love it, we really love it. Like, it's so great, it's so incredible that the changes you're making alter the story, or they alter the things we know and like about these characters. But the reason why you can do that is because it's adaptation, right? Like some things don't translate perfectly to from book to film. So how do you adjust for that? That's the adaptation part. Um, right? Like I think a lot of people, if Aragorn was the way he is in the book, would find him really boring or uninteresting, or they wouldn't care, right? Viggo Mortensen as an actor and the writing of that character, the changes they made make you care more about him. Um, so like those are the changes that you go, well, you shouldn't mess with perfection, but perfection in literature is different than perfection in film. So there always need to be changes to make things work the right way, right? And especially with something like House of the Dragon, it's a history, it's a telling of historical events. The book is with different perspectives on those events, and some people, with conjecture and with unreliable narration and different things. And so when you're taking those events and you're trying to tell a story where you make people care about the characters, because if we don't care about the characters, why are we going to watch the story? You know, it changes the perspective a little bit. You have to make certain changes, and while there are changes made that we don't necessarily agree with, or that we wouldn't have done, or we would have done something different, that's the nature of it, right? And I still sat down and watched it every week because I still quite enjoy the show. But I do think like there are things that they clearly just mess up, right? Season 1 had good moments, but to me it was kind of a rough start. Like it was fine, it was whatever. People who haven't read the book, I think, enjoy the show a lot more. And people who have are kind of just like, you know, but there's also things within the show that like book readers go, "Oh, I know that's Black Alley," but show watchers, they never mention her name. Nobody knows who the fuck she is, right? And so I don't know why that is. I mean, they changed it so that she kills Sir Kristen Cole. Great. Us as book readers go, "Oh, cool. Black Alley killed Sir Kristen Cole instead of just three random archers on a hill." Um, but people who don't know who Black Alley is, right? Like, that's one of those things. I don't know if that's like a throw in for book readers to be like, "Hey, look at guys, look at cool stuff, huh?" Or if it's just like we want Black Alley in here, right? We want Alison Blackwood, but we're not going to tell anybody who the fuck she is. We're just never like. Did they overlook that and then nobody says her name? No, like even Roddy, right? Does anybody ever call him Roddy? Like, do we know Roddy the Ruin? We know Oscar Tully. Like, I, is the show like just they don't care if the audience knows, or they are throwing these characters in because they're part of the story, and it rewards book readers who know who they are, and they just know, hey, the book readers will be all over Threads and Instagram and fucking Twitter and everything else, telling everybody about who these characters are and what's going to happen to them. So I don't know. But like I said, I enjoy the show. I sit through it. When it's on, I look forward to it. It doesn't pain me to have to wait 2 years like it pains other people, because okay, that's the nature of these things. We'll wait. Um, but yeah, I think there's a lot of things that they did. The butterfly thing is really weird. I think, just because I think it is really just like an fu to George Martin in a lot of ways. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. So many weird things. Like the reality of where we are at this point in the story, and how we get from here to where we're going. It's hard to know what they're gonna do to get us there, right? Like, because again, little adaptations make a big difference. Um, Laris escaping with Aegon is a big change because, again, in the book, Laris never leaves King's Landing, but nobody ever knows where he is. And you find out later that, he was pivotal in getting all the children out, right? Young Prince Maelor, the baby who gets ripped apart, Aegon, Jaehaera, they all get out through Laris's help, essentially. Um, you know, Alicent, just lets her do whatever the fuck she wants, right? I don't know. Like, it's a lot of changes that lead you to a place where as a book reader, and maybe this is exciting, right, for some people or a lot of people, you don't really know what's going to happen now, right? Like, ultimately, you do expect some major plot points, right? But we haven't even been introduced to the shepherd yet, who's a pretty important character. We don't have we we have Ulf as a traitor, but no one else. We all like the positioning of these characters and the timing of the story tells you things are going to change, and it, maybe John Roxton doesn't play that role later that he's supposed to play. Maybe he plays a different role, but you'd assume Damon, you know, let me put it this way: you assume we're still going to have a dragon pit plot point. We're still going to have the God's Eye plot point. We're still going to have the Dragonstone plot point. Those are the three major things, aside from the second Battle of Tumbleton, which I don't know necessarily if they're going to do now. But those are the three major things. And the second Battle of Tumbleton does take place around the Dragon Pit, story as well. So, who knows? Who knows? They're doing a lot of things. It leaves room for imagination and surprise, and there's something there for everyone, I think. But you do see now some non-book readers start to turn against Rhaenyra. Like, she's acting a fool. You know what I'm saying? And so there are people that are watching her and going, I can't support you anymore, girl. And there's other people going, hey, yo, I got you, Ray. You my girl. You know what I'm saying? But you can't support her forever, guys. I am interested to see what they actually end up doing. We saw a lot of Joffrey, her son, in this episode. Who we've barely ever seen before. So a lot of people are probably like, who the fuck is this kid? It's her son, Joffrey. Not Joffrey Baratheon. This is Joffrey Valerian. I have seen people questioning why her kids were Valerians. Jacaerys, Lucerys, Joffrey. They're Valerians because they're supposed to be the children of Laenor Valerian, who was Corlys' son, who was her first husband, who was gay, clearly not the father of her children. But that's why they have his last name, because, they're not Targaryens. They're Valerians. Her other kids, Aegon, he is hers and Daemon's kid, so he's a Targaryen, right? So, anyway, Joffrey's got a part to play still in the story as well. Not a good part, not a great part, not a big part, but he has a part. And so it'll be interesting to see if they do that, right? Well, there's a lot left of this story. Well, there's not a lot left. There's a couple major plot points, but there's a lot they have to get through in 8 episodes, and they really slowed down so much of it. They could have done this in 3 seasons. They did a whole bunch of shit at Harrenhal in season 2 with Daemon that nobody gave a fuck about. And they did a whole bunch of shit at Harrenhal in season 3 and nobody gives a fuck about it. So they didn't need to slow us down this much. But they did. So hopefully we have some pace in season 4 that's not overly rushed. But we do need some pace. We need every episode to matter and do something and get us to where we need to go. So, yeah. That's it. I mean, overall, it's a solid season. It's like a 7 out of 10 season, House of the Dragon. There's a lot to enjoy. There's always those what the fuck moments in Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And we got a couple of those here, right? We got the Battle of the Gullet. We got Rhaenyra taking King's Landing. And then we got 5 episodes of filler. And then we got the Battle of Tumbleton. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I got on this one. Much love. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Click all the buttons, do all the things. Share your thoughts, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.